In the heart of the 14th century, a time when Europe was still reeling from the Black Death and struggling with the Hundred Years' War, one of the most powerful barons in France, Enguerrand, and the VII de Coucy, found himself at the center of a web of political intrigue and military conflict. The year was 1378, and the Kingdom of France was on the brink of a major crisis. King Charles V, known as the Wise, was trying to navigate a complex landscape of alliances, rebellions, and external threats. One of the most pressing issues was the ongoing conflict in Brittany, a duchy that had long been a thorn in the side of the French crown. Imagine a world where the rules of chivalry and honor were as important as the laws of the land. A world where powerful barons like Enguerrand de Coucy wielded more influence than many modern-day politicians. In this world, the fate of kingdoms and duchies could hang in the balance over a single decision or a moment of betrayal. This is the story of how Enguerrand de Coucy, a man who had already proven his valor in battle, found himself at the crossroads of history. King Charles V was a shrewd ruler, but he was also a man who understood that the stability of his kingdom depended on the loyalty and support of his barons. One of the most loyal and capable of these barons was Enguerrand de Coucy. In the middle of the Normandy Campaign, Charles had sent Coucy to the frontier with Flanders to strengthen the defenses against new threats. The Count of Flanders, once a staunch ally of France, had shifted his allegiance to England due to economic interests. This move was a significant blow to French interests, especially when the Count of Flanders gave asylum to the Duke of Brittany, who had renounced his vassalage to France and rejoined the English cause. The Duke of Brittany, Jean de Montfort, had become a symbol of resistance against French control. King Charles decided to take drastic action. He convened a ceremonial court of justice, where he accused Montfort of felony and treason. The trial was held in absentia, with Montfort ignoring the summons. After a lengthy and formal process, the king declared Montfort's title null and announced that Brittany would be united with the crown of France. This decision, however, had the opposite effect of what Charles intended. Instead of quelling the rebellion, it only inflamed it, and the Duchy of Brittany erupted in resistance. King Charles now faced a new and more dangerous threat. The Count of Flanders, allied with Montfort and the English, posed a significant risk of a new invasion across the northern frontier. In this critical situation, the Domain of Coucy, which guarded the northern gateway to France, became a focal point. Charles needed to ensure that this key stronghold was secure and loyal. In February 1379, the king sent his treasurer, Jean Le Mercier, and a visitor general of royal property to survey the barony of Coucy. They were instructed to assess the state of the domain and report back. In March, Charles himself visited Coucy-le-Château and other castles and towns within the barony. The king, who was reportedly ailing, watched from his litter as hunts were organized in his honor. It is unclear whether Enguerrand de Coucy was present to welcome his sovereign, but the visit was a clear indication of the crown's interest in the barony. The king's trip was not just a ceremonial gesture, it was a strategic move. Charles may have had plans to purchase the barony of Coucy, placing it directly under the control of the crown. This would have strengthened the northern defenses and secured a crucial stronghold. However, the details of such a transaction, if it was ever seriously considered, remain a mystery. Enguerrand de Coucy, who had no male heir and only a single female heir who was married to an English noble, may have been a key factor in the king's calculations. At the same time, Enguerrand was negotiating the marriage of his daughter, Marie de Coucy. She was one of 3 candidates being considered as a potential bride for the recently widowed son of the King of Aragon. The other candidates were Yolande de Bar, a niece of King Charles, and Catherine of Geneva, a sister of Pope Clement. The Spanish prince was eager to secure a powerful alliance, and he dispatched envoys to Coucy, the Duc d'Anjou, and the Count of Geneva to arrange the marriage as quickly as possible. In the end, Yolande de Bar was chosen, and Marie de Coucy later married Yolande's brother, Henry de Bar, the heir to a great duchy on the borders of Lorraine. This marriage maintained the high status of the Coucy family and solidified their alliances with other powerful noble houses. Enguerrand de Coucy, perhaps influenced by these new royal connections or by his own sense of pride, created his own order of chivalry, the Order of the Crown. This order, celebrated in a poem by the court poet Eustache Deschamps, was meant to symbolize grandeur, power, and the virtues that surrounded a king. The 12 flowers of authority represented faith, virtue, moderation, love of God, prudence, truth, honor, strength, mercy, charity, loyalty, and largesse. The order was open to both men and women, reflecting a democratic spirit in the chivalric code. In 1379, Enguerrand's first wife, Isabella de Coucy, died in England, leaving him free to remarry. However, he did not rush into a new marriage, likely due to the pressing affairs of state and his military duties. The king's visit to Coucy did not result in an immediate purchase of the barony, but the crown's interest remained strong. Meanwhile, the war with England continued to drag on, with neither side achieving a decisive victory. The English, once masters of the Channel under King Edward III, had lost their naval superiority thanks to Charles's alliance with the sea power of Castile and his own shipbuilding program. When the Duke of Lancaster led an English force to land near St. Malo in Brittany, the French-held port defied the siege and forced the Duke to retreat. This failure only added to the growing dissatisfaction among the English people, who began to murmur against their nobles for their lack of success in the war. The frustration of the English commoners reached a boiling point when their merchant ships were repeatedly attacked by French and Scottish pirates. When the merchants complained to the King's Council, they were told that the defense of their trade was the responsibility of the Duke of Lancaster and his fleet. This response only fueled the anger, and a wealthy London alderman named John Philpot took matters into his own hands. He assembled a private force of ships and sailors and went to battle the pirates, capturing several of them and their prize ships. When Philpot returned to London, he was hailed as a hero, but his hot-tempered response to the King's Council summed up the growing exasperation of the Third Estate with the nobility. "I exposed myself and my property for the safety and deliverance of our country, because you would not lift a hand in its defense." The conflict in Brittany and the rising tensions in Flanders and Languedoc added to the complexity of the situation. The Count of Flanders, caught up in a local revolt, was unable to mediate a settlement with the Duke of Brittany. The revolt in Flanders, which began in Ghent, was sparked by a tax imposed by the Count to pay for a tournament. The citizens, led by an angry tradesman, refused to pay, and the conflict escalated into a full-scale rebellion. The revolt spread to other cities, and the Count's attempts to suppress it only made matters worse. At the same time, a revolt erupted in Languedoc, a region under the harsh rule of the Duc d'Anjou. The people of Languedoc, already suffering from famine, war, and oppressive taxes, erupted in violence against the authorities. They attacked the homes of the rich, murdered officials, and committed acts of savagery. The revolt was eventually suppressed, but the punishment was severe. The people of Montpellier were forced to kneel before the Duke and beg for mercy, and all arms were surrendered to the royal forces. These revolts, which were separate but connected by a common theme of resistance to oppressive taxes, were part of a larger wave of class warfare that swept through Europe in the late 14th century. The events in Ghent, Languedoc, and other regions were a clear sign of the growing dissatisfaction and the willingness of the common people to rise up against their rulers. Enguerrand de Coucy, caught in the midst of these turbulent times, continued to play a crucial role in the defense of the kingdom. His strategic position and military prowess made him a valuable asset to King Charles V. As the war with England dragged on and the internal struggles of France intensified, the barony of Coucy remained a key stronghold, a symbol of the power and influence of one of France's most respected barons. The story of Enguerrand de Coucy is a testament to the complexities of medieval politics and the personal courage and loyalty required to navigate such a turbulent era. In a world where the line between loyalty and rebellion was often blurred, Enguerrand de Coucy stood as a pillar of strength, a man whose actions and decisions shaped the course of history.